What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. Thanks as always for taking the time to hang out here on this Tuesday. A lot to get to on this show. We have Game 6 of the World Series happening this evening in Houston. The Atlanta Braves can close it all out with a victory tonight. It's Luis Garcia, Max Fried on the bump for the Braves. You're going to break that game down towards the end of the show. I see Mark hanging out with us live on our YouTube page over at FTN. Smash that like button, leave a comment there if you have any questions. We'll talk about a little bit about Week 9 here from a fantasy football standpoint. Maybe take a look at some early spreads, something that I've yet to do on this show, but I think there's a couple spreads we should jump on right now. The Chargers, 2.5 favorites against the Eagles. Come on. Let's do it. Let's jump on the Chargers right now. I have some buy lows and some sell highs. Typically, Tino and I break this down on Wednesday, and I get his thoughts tomorrow on some of the roster trends that we'll do on this show, the most added, the most dropped, and get his thoughts on some buy low and some sell high candidates. But I have a couple as well here for you. I had a guest cancel last minute, so I was like, you know what? I have the article that's live over at ftnfantasy.com. It's a free article. Several buy low candidates, sell highs, some holds, some drops, some guys to add, as well as some guys to buy in dynasty leagues and the top 10 traded players in CBS leagues as well. It's all there for you for free over at ftnfantasy.com. But I'll break that down a little bit. I got a couple buy low and sell highs. We can hit the waiver wire in a little bit too if you missed yesterday's show. We do have news that Derrick Henry now, and that came down before the show started, so we had that. And then we had the big Von Miller trade that broke midway through the show. And then there's another small trade here this morning. We could get some more trades here in the NFL. Melvin Ingram to the Chiefs, 2022 sixth round pick from Pittsburgh. So he goes to KC. Speaking of KC, they got it done last night, barely. We'll talk about that game in just a little bit. But some buy lows, some sell highs, and of course, some NHL shot props and some picks. Mark Harrison hanging out with us live during this show. You can hang out with us live. You can watch the replay over at ftnbets.com if you don't catch it on Game Plus. And Game Plus, man, what a lineup that they have. I mean, I'm honored to be part of everything that they're offering over at Game Plus Network. But you got the Pat Mayo experience that happens after Mean Streets. You got the fantasy footballers. Love the footballers. You got Jake Seeley, All In Football. He was with Lauren Carpenter, stepmom Laura today, and Lauren today, and myself yesterday. And then Jeff Ratcliffe, the GOAT, will join Jake on Wednesdays. A lot of great stuff over at Game Plus Network, plus Emery Hunt. Emery Hunt has a show over there. He is a super sharp mind. We got to get Emery Hunt back on the show. I got to reach out and see if we can get him back on the show. Yes, Steph Vaccarino is commenting on the Twitter handle, says, make the Broncos trade Melvin Gordon. We talked about that yesterday on this show. I thought, the Von Miller trade really was surprising in that they ate up a lot of the salary. I think 9 of the 9.7 the Broncos are eating. But clearly they're selling their assets, getting some picks, despite kind of hanging around, really, inside the division. And but nonetheless, they should trade Melvin Gordon. This is the final year of his deal. He's looked pretty good. The Denver Broncos have, in my opinion, the best schedule moving forward for running backs. They have some really, really soft matchups. If anything happened where Gordon missed some time or Gordon was traded, Devontae Williams could step into a larger role. It could be very much like Cam Akers towards the end of last season. I mean, I have a lot of Devontae Williams shares. He's probably going to win me a couple consolation brackets the way things are going. I've talked about him on the show as a buy low candidate. And when he had the big Thursday night football games, get him off my roster. Don't want anything to do with him. But also, he could be a pretty sneaky buy low candidate, as Gordon just had a couple touchdowns last week. And if anything does happen where he is traded, we could see Devontae Williams have a pretty large role inside this offense in Denver. And that would be, a bell cow role. He's catching balls out of the backfield. There'd be nobody else really that could step in. So I'm with you, Steph. I'd like to see Melvin Gordon traded as well. We'll see if that does happen. If you're the Broncos, man, let's get it done. That's the way to do it. But 9 games in the NHL here today. We're going to talk some picks and talk some shot props. Mark says he missed the earlier show, couldn't miss this one. Let's go shot props. A couple changes from the boards that I got my guy George, 3 putts for par, to make last night. He's traveling. Usually give him some stuff in the morning. He's always scrambling. He does some great work for us over at FT. And I say that he's scrambling. He's an absolute goat. He's pretty much on par. He's so efficient with his work. But I give him some boards sometimes early in the morning, which, he could be scrambling at that moment. But I gave him some picks yesterday and some props. As an example, Dylan Larkin, plus money, 13 shots in his last 2 games. He's ruled out tonight, a personal reason. So I'm off the wings of the upset. Not on the halves, but I'm off the wings, and we'll have to find another shot prop for Dylan Larkin. I got a few. Dangle Bet Selly is live. It's live at ftnbets.com. If you missed it this morning with myself and Eric Young, it's a free show twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. Eric and I talk about hockey from a season-long standpoint. He is an absolute hockey psycho. He watches all of the games. Even when he's in Vegas, he recorded a bunch of games, and he was staying up till 4 in the morning texting me, "Oh, man, Victor Arvidsson looks really good. Oh, Timo Meier looks awesome." He's an absolute hockey psycho. But we ran through all 9 games here today from a DFS standpoint, from a betting standpoint, and from a shot prop standpoint. Like I said, that show is free. The replay over at ftnbets.com, the YouTube section. Leave a comment there, and I'll circle back before a puck drop. If you do have any questions, please leave them there. And also subscribe over at iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. It would really do us a huge favor. We gave away a betting package on the show this morning. We're going to give away a betting package on the show on Thursday, and it's not just NHL picks, $49.99 per month at ftnbets.com/pricing. Use that promo code NHL. Right now, still a 20% discount. That could go away at any moment, but you're going to get everybody's picks. I mean, Steph just popped in with a question there about, a comment. He's killing it over at FTNbets.com. The basketball picks have been lit. A lot of sharp minds in the NBA, NFL. Josh Gross, dude is absolutely crushing every single sport over at FTNbets.com. Tennis, NBA, maybe the last day here for MLB. Hopefully we can get that World Series ticket 10-1 that I laid over at FTNbets.com in December, and I did hedge like a sucker when the Astros were down 3-1. I got it at plus 475. I had to do it. But we'll talk about that game tonight. I think it could be all over for Houston, but I think we'll see some runs. I really do think we'll see some runs. It should be some fireworks tonight in Houston. All right, so last night, quickly, we'll recap last night a little bit. We always have to hold ourselves accountable and recap things that went wrong. And honestly, I'm just happy that week 7 or 8 is done. It's gone. I told you yesterday that I took a lot of L's. Spreads were pretty good. Picks still solid. Props were flirting around 30 units over at ftnbets.com for NFL. We're flirting 40 units over at NHL. The picks have been good, but from a straight up my own pick'em pool, I mean, absolute trash. I have to give myself a look in the mirror here. What are you doing? Are they gonna get rid of the mean streets? Are they gonna cancel the show? Because I had a lot of picks that weren't good, not great. So I'm happy to move on. I'm out of Survivor and half of my Survivor pools with the Bengals. I was on the Cowboys. I was on some upsets with the Jags and Detroit. I'm happy to just move on here. I thought the Giants were going to win last night. They probably should have. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I thought they played a disciplined game last night, and a couple penalties on the last drive kind of hurt them. They would have had a second pick on Mahomes. They jumped on the line, and then the bogus taunting penalty I thought hurt them a little bit. I just, you don't like this. The taunting penalties. I've had it with them. This is enough. It's the no fun league. It's brutal. But we have to hold ourselves accountable. We can pat ourselves on the back when we get some right. We were on the Giants. Shout out to Tino was definitely on that, plus 10.5. I mean, the Chiefs don't cover. If you've been hanging out with me the entire show, even last year, the Chiefs don't cover. They don't cover games. It's straight up. They don't cover games. I think they've covered 4 of their last 17 games. Vegas just overrates them. They don't cover. And this year, they're turning the ball over. I mean, more turnovers yesterday. Mahomes threw a pick in the red zone inside the end zone. Travis Kelce had a fumble. It just seems to be something. They escaped with a victory, but at times I thought they looked very mediocre yesterday. The Giants played a pretty good football game. So we got the Giants at that plus 10.5. We got the Devontae Booker rushing yard prop and receiving yard prop. We mentioned his receiving yard catch prop. We didn't give that on the show, but it was all Booker yesterday, which is pretty solid if you were in on him. Tyreek Hill, we got pretty easily 6.5 grabs. All he did was catch 12 balls for 94 yards. He had 18 targets yesterday. Daryl Williams, we didn't get. We needed 2 more carries, but I mean, Derek Gore came out of nowhere. Who the heck is that guy? Honestly, saw some preseason runs from him, but I thought, no, he's not going to touch the field. It'll be Daryl Williams, but it was Derek Gore, and you know what? He looked okay. And there was a joke in one of my dynasty leagues. My buddy says he'd give 3 Rockets and his worst Henry chocolate bar from Christmas and a 3rd round pick for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know, man. CEH didn't look great, and he's probably going to come back to a bit of a committee. I think maybe best case, Worst case, maybe it's like 60-40, but that's a tough go right now for CEH, watching other guys look decent when he didn't look all that good. Didn't get Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns, so didn't get Mahomes and didn't get Daryl Williams there, but we did get Hill, we did get the Bookers. Myself personally put in the FTN bet tracker Sterling Shepard over 4.5 grabs. Of course, he left with an injury. Unfortunately, that guy just can't stay healthy, so was burned there. And a shout out to a guy, my guy, producer Tino, running the show for us here every day. You catch him tomorrow here on this show. He called an Evan Ingram touchdown. He called it. He called an Evan Ingram touchdown. I think it was his only catch, Tino. Maybe he got a second one late, but it was certainly his first grab. He had a touchdown there. And he also said he would score a touchdown, and then teams would start calling about Evan Ingram. I don't know if teams started calling about Evan Ingram because he scored a touchdown yesterday, but teams are calling about Evan Ingram. There's some reports that the Packers are one of those teams that are interested in Evan Ingram. So, Tino, you may get your wish. We may have to get you on the show tomorrow and you have yourself like a little victory lap there. Shout out to Jake Seeley, who loves victory laps. All right, quick break, and we'll continue the football talk. We'll touch on some injuries, and we'll also talk about some buy lows and some sell highs. And also, in case you missed yesterday, we will get into some waiver wire pickups for you as well. So keep your lock. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. I see people rolling in with some comments. I mentioned Mark Harrison in the last segment. We will get to some shot props in just a little bit. Isaiah Alexis, I just traded Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson for Justin Jefferson and Mike Williams. Wow. Pretty good deal. I like that. We'll get to buy lows here in a second, but Mike Williams is on there. Good deal, Isaiah. I like that. Last night I went to hockey, and it was my first game. I played in a couple leagues, but it was my first game. Shout out to the Berwick crew, Remax. We're gonna have one or two guys watching the show here today, getting some shot props. But I went there last night, and it was just like the guys started tossing me their phones. Here's my fantasy lineup. Here's my fantasy lineup. So I'm taking a look at some leagues, and I saw this one guy who was winless, and he can only play 2 wide receivers in a flex, and he really didn't have any running backs, but his wideouts were like Devontae Adams, he had A.J. Brown, he had Deebo Samuel, he had Mike Williams, and then he had another stud wideout in Brennan Cooks. It's like, dude, you got to flip one of these guys, and he says he always is like in a tough spot to, who to trade or who to play. He says he always just looks at projections. I told him to take a look at FTNFantasy.com projections led by our guy, Jeff Ratcliffe, to help him make those tough decisions. We also have like the starter sit tool. We have a lot of tools over at FTNFantasy.com. Pretty cool, man. I'm pretty proud to be part of the company over at FTN because we've only been around for about a year and a half, not even, and just like every single other week there's something neat that I think FTN has to offer that could help you guys out, certainly. But yeah, that's a move that you make. You trade a big name like Devontae Adams, you get a couple big ones, you buy low on one of those guys. But you also have to, if there's guys that you're not starting, if you have a surplus at wide receiver, it's really tough to make trades. And that's what we said. How do I make a trade? You have to, I would just go to your league and say, you make a comment here, guys, I'm looking for a running back. I have all these wide receivers. I'm willing to give up either Adams or A.J. Brown or Deebo, Mike Williams. I'm willing to give up some of these guys for something in return. And, at the end of the day, it may not be a proper return like Devontae Adams. This is a great return, Isaiah, but Devontae Adams, like you may get, a bit of a low ball offer, but if it does help out your team from a balance standpoint, if you get yourself a solid running back, then, you help the balance of your team moving forward, and then you can make a bit of a run that way. So, before we get to the buy lows, in case you missed yesterday, there wasn't a whole lot. The biggest news, of course, is Derrick Henry. He's been placed on IR, undergone foot surgery. The timetable is like from 6 weeks to 10 weeks. And somebody yesterday in the dressing room told me that they just straight up dropped Henry. Now, I get it. If your league doesn't play with IR spots, please make that a change in your league. Everyone should be playing with IR spots, especially with COVID and everything that's happening. You should have an IR spot. It is a great asset to have. Most of my leagues have two, but one certainly. I got chirped the other day for one of my leagues. It's a 33-man dynasty league. There's no IR spots, 33 roster spots. It's IDP as well. You don't need one in those leagues, but I think your standard ones, you should have one. Don't drop Derrick Henry. Today, you can place him on IR. You don't know. This guy's a freak, right? He's a beast. He's done things that we've never seen before. We don't know. It could be 6 weeks. If it's 6 weeks, you got him back for fantasy football playoff time. Maybe he comes back before 6 weeks. You just don't know, right? So don't drop him. James Robinson looked like he avoided a significant injury. He's considered day-to-day. Jameis Winston's done for the season. Tyson Hill is progressing. He's one of those waiver wire pickups, right? Like, he may not cost you a whole lot. We liked him last year as a top 10 quarterback when he was starting. He's very similar to Jalen Hurts, maybe a little bit more of an accurate quarterback. He can run around. He can use his legs. Michael Thomas may or may not return. I don't think that really matters. Obviously, it would be good for Taysom Hill to have a guy like Michael Thomas to throw footballs to, but Taysom Hill is one of those guys that you can hit up on the waiver wire. In a single quarterback league, maybe not. Maybe you don't want to hold two right now, but in a super flex, absolutely. He's probably available. I would say he's available in most formats as he's progressing from a concussion. T.Y. Hilton already ruled out due to a concussion. Jalen Reagor, hopeful to play. You're not rostering him anyways. And then that was it really for significant injuries. I mean, yesterday we saw Sterling Shepard leave and Kadarius Toney leave and then come back. But Shepard's just, it's been unfortunate for him. But Tino, let's get into some buy lows. You got the buy low, a couple guys that I highlighted here that we can maybe buy low or check in on to see. So Mike Williams is up at the top. Devontae Smith, Emmanuel Sanders, DeAndre Swift, and Leonard Fournette. So for Leonard Fournette and DeAndre Swift, these guys are on buy. And I think this is the best opportunity. We got a few teams on buy this week. And I think that's the best opportunity to just go knocking on the door to see if any of these guys are available. Fournette just ran up against a really tough Saints rush defense. I still think he's the lead there. He does play the Saints again, but the schedule has got some soft games in there, and the Bucs are rolling. They're scoring points. They're going to score points, and the Saints are just, it seems to be the Achilles heel for Tom Brady inside the regular season. But if you can get Fournette, I would just get him if you're up at the top and you think you're going to get into the playoffs. You could maybe get Fournette as a guy to, as your flex guy, try to set yourself up for a playoff run here. As for Swift, it's possible. He just came off a dud game and a smash spot against the Eagles, but he's still an RB1 in my opinion. He still caught 5 passes last week. He got 12 of the 16 running back carries last week, so he still got a big bulk of the work, and Jamal Williams is not 100%. So for Swift, if you're up near the top and you see a Swift owner in your league who's, I don't know, maybe they only have 3 wins or 2 wins and they're fighting for their playoff lives and they can't afford to just have Swift on bye this week. And, you could sell high. We'll get into some running backs potentially, but you could sell maybe an Adrian Peterson or a Boston Scott, somebody that, will, get them points this week. That's a way to take advantage of your league mates. Maybe you package 2 for 1 and get a Swift, because I still do believe in DeAndre Swift, especially in a full point setting. This is a guy who's going to catch 4 or 5 passes every single week for you, and he just gave you 10 fantasy points in a PPR setting. If that's his floor, that's not bad, really, from a running back standpoint. Emmanuel Sanders just had a dud, but he played more snaps and ran more routes than anybody in Buffalo last week. He had 4 targets, 0 grabs, but you probably can't get him. But just knock on the door. Owner, hey, Sanders, dud game, interested, selling? Probably not. Jacksonville this week. Buffalo's got a very soft schedule. You probably can't get him. Mike Williams, I just credited Alexis again for making that deal. But for Mike Williams, yeah, maybe a bit of a tough spot this week against Darius Slay, who has been playing pretty good. And Mike Williams has given owners like 3 amazing weeks and 3 dud weeks overall. You look at some of the games, 22 points, 22, 33. He's actually given you 4 unbelievable weeks. He had a 36-point showing against Cleveland, but then 3 games with 5 fewer fantasy points and games like 1 catch for 11, 2 for 27, 2 for 19. But after Philly, things get pretty good for him. So he's got a matchup against Minnesota. The Steelers is, a bit of a tough one, but you roll him out as a wide receiver too. You got Cincinnati, you got the Giants, you got KC, but look at the playoff schedule. You got KC week 15, and then you got Houston week 16. Go ahead and try to get him if you can. I think, the door is open. Just tell him, hey, Darius Slay's been pretty good. It's a tough matchup. He's not going to be able to do much against him. And then Devontae Smith. So this isn't a Philly thing at all. I was watching and listening to All in Football Bets TV at Bets Media, which you can catch on Game Plus Network later on tonight. I believe 9 Eastern or 8 Eastern. Nonetheless, it's this evening, and I respect stepmom Lauren, and I respect Jake Seeley, and they were having a conversation about Jamal Agnew or Devontae Smith the rest of the season. And sure, you could have that conversation because nobody would think that you would have that kind of conversation between these two guys. And I'm into Jamal Agnew. I'd like him over Laviska Shenault. He led the way in targets last week with the Jags. You got the Bills. You can kind of throw in the middle of the field with them sometimes. I think he could fall into a few targets. I don't love him overall this week. But just that conversation in general makes me, like Devontae Smith even more. I definitely take the Smith side. And again, it's not a Philly thing. I'm not a huge on the Eagles by any means, but Devontae Smith, that game just got out of hand. Yes, this week is tough against the Chargers, and he's got the Broncos and the Saints. Like, those aren't great matchups for him moving forward, those 3 spots, but those are going to be more competitive games. He had 3 targets last week. 3 targets, that's it. He had a target on Hurts' first throw, which he dropped, and then he converted on a 3rd and long, 1 catch for 15 yards, and that was it. But they ran all over Detroit. It was a 44-6 win. It was a blowout. They ran the ball a ton over them, and they're probably going to run on the Chargers. It's a good spot to run on them as well. Chargers are going to score some points. They're going to have to throw the football a little bit. Where I like Smith and why I think he's a good buy low candidate is because of the weeks to follow after these next 3. If you are in a playoff spot, he may be set at the wide receiver position, but you also may have had some injuries here. Smith, look at this schedule. Week 12 at the Giants. Week 13 at the Jets. Bye week kind of hurts to have the bye before the playoffs. So it's all about context. It's all about your situation. Week 15, Washington. Week 16, Giants. Week 17, Washington. It doesn't really get any better than that. I have some respect for the Giants, but Washington has been atrocious this season. They've allowed a ton of passing yards. Wide receivers are inside the top 5 in fantasy points against. They're among the leaders in allowing passing touchdowns. Like, those are really good spots for Devontae Smith. No, he hasn't had that big blow-up game. He has 2 19 fantasy point showings. He's got a couple dud games. He's well on his way to passing his receiving yard prop that we had on this show at 750. He's got 421. We're at the halfway point. I just think last week was one of those games where they didn't have to throw the football. There's been other games, 9 targets, 5 grabs, 9 targets, 7 grabs, 10 targets, 7 grabs. There's been some decent games from him, so I think he's a pretty good buy low candidate. Some other guys that I'll throw out here that I think he should just knock on the door of some, owners again. Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. These guys have had a couple dud games. Dak is hurt. Looks like he's trending in the right direction. You probably can't get him, but you still see what you could get. Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook didn't do a whole lot. Nick Chubb. A lot of people are asking questions about Nick Chubb. What do I do with Nick Chubb? Nick Chubb got a lot of work towards the end of the 4th quarter with the game on the line, but we will see Dearness Johnson kind of play that Kareem Hunt role, but I still like Chubb, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle. These are guys that I would certainly check to see if they were available. From dynasty standpoint, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Javonte Williams is a great buy in a dynasty league. Melvin Gordon's not going to be on this squad next year. He may not be on it next week. Michael Carter, the price is up a little bit more, but Tony Pollard, Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman, Van Jefferson, Elijah Moore, and Henry Ruggs. These are guys that I like, and the Raiders have one of the best schedules moving forward. I would try to just check your wire to see if Henry Ruggs is available. Derek Carr in a super flex, a 2-quarterback league. Edwards potentially, as also Darren Waller. Like, these are guys that I would be seeing if they are available as well. All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll talk about a couple sell high candidates. And I see some people coming in with some questions. We'll address that next here on Main Streets. Keep her locked. You're watching Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. So let's get to some of these questions here. Mohammed Saad says, I traded Hollywood Brown and Damien Harris for Aaron Jones. Did I win? I mean, it's tough. It's tough to say if you won there. It really is all about context. I kind of like the Harris Hollywood side there, dude. But I don't think you lost the trade. I think Aaron Jones is an upgrade over Damien Harris. Aaron Jones is no, I don't want to say that he's touchdown dependent. He has found the end zone quite a bit over the last couple of years. A.J. Dillon is a really good back who's getting some touches there as well. I do agree on maybe selling high on Hollywood Brown as Rashad Bateman gets a little bit more involved in the offense. We've seen him in 2 games now get more usage than I think a lot of people thought, including Harbaugh himself, who said he didn't expect to play him as much as a rookie, but he was just doing really good things on the football field. But, Damien Harris really is still game script dependent. I have a hard time rolling him out, even though he's scoring touchdowns. There's still other Patriot backs that get on the field. A couple weeks ago, of course, they blew out the Jets, and there was 3 Patriot running backs that finished inside the top 12 in fantasy. He just doesn't catch a lot of passes, and when they're playing from behind, overall, like, he does kind of get out of the game script. But let's take a look at Harris's schedule. You got Carolina this week, which is not a phenomenal matchup. Cleveland, Atlanta, Tennessee, Buffalo, Indy's a tough spot to run on. So the playoff schedule is not ideal against Indy and Buffalo. But wow, they got Buffalo week 13 and Buffalo week 16. Those are going to be big games for the Pats. But you know what? I don't think you lost the deal. I don't think you lost it. I think it's okay. Maybe you have a surplus of wide receivers and, you just wanted to have the upgrade over Harris. So I get that one. We got MPX 1606. Would you trade Swift for Fournette and Keenan Allen? Yeah. Again, it's all about context. I'd love to know the rest of your team. He says he's going to flip Keenan Allen for another RB after. Or would you wait a week and trade for Saquon? I'm not into trading for Saquon. I think, I'm just a little nervous about Saquon with the injuries. He could be a league winner. There's no question about that. If you can get him on the cheap, then by all means, I think you should be, especially if you're up at the top of the standings, you should be checking in. We've had the conversation so many times on this show. You should be checking in on DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Saquon, CMC, because you can afford to take that risk. So I'm fine with it, but I wouldn't be giving up too much for Saquon. Yes, he's a stud. The upside is extremely high, but honestly, it's crazy to say, but I'd rather have Swift in a piece as opposed to Saquon. But, Swift and Fournette, trade Swift for Fournette and Keenan Allen. I'm all right with that, but keep in mind that, Fournette's got the bye week this week, so does Swift. But, you're getting 2 pieces for 1. I think it's a pretty decent upgrade there. Mohammed says, I still have Diggs and Keenan Allen, and I have Aaron Jones and Kamara. So, yeah, you're looking pretty good there. John Harris checks in here, 12-team dynasty, trade Brennan Cooks for futures or keep for next year and beyond. I think it's all about how you're doing this year. I mean, I think if you're out of it and you're not going to win, you can move Brennan Cooks for futures. I think that's okay to make that flip and just look for next year. Brennan Cooks, let's just bring up the sell highest. You got it. I think Cooks is on the board here for me as a sell high candidate. Brennan Cooks, a lot of his points last week came up in garbage time. And that's all right. We talked before. It's okay. My league counts 4th quarter points. Your league probably does as well, and it should. But Cooks, the schedule is pretty decent for him moving forward. I just can't trust Houston right now, and I don't know. They may trade him. It's pure speculation on my part, but they could trade Cooks, and he could land in a spot where he's the 2nd or 3rd best option on his team. He probably goes to a competitive team where they have good pieces already. If he went to Green Bay, for example, yeah, I'd definitely like him with Aaron Rodgers, but he wouldn't be the one there. Okay? He would be behind Devontae Adams, the team that's running the football plan at a slower pace lately. So, but from a dynasty standpoint, John, I would flip him, right? What's the future? Where is he next year? He's been a guy that's really good. He's been great. Good thing he's been healthy this year. Concussions have bothered him over the past couple of seasons, but he's been flipped, right? He's moved around quite a bit. I think he played on the Pats, he played on the Rams, played on the Saints, he's playing out of Houston. Where does he go next year? Where's his situation? What is it like? So I think, don't just give him away for free. He had the big game. Tell whoever is interested that the schedule moving forward is actually pretty decent. They're going to be playing from behind. You could get Tyrod Taylor back, which helps this offense. But I'm into just flipping him and getting rid of him, getting him off my roster. I've been trying to trade him. Nobody seems to want him, but he just had a decent game against the Rams, albeit it did come in garbage time. But he had it. He had that day, and he did score a touchdown. He only has 2 touchdowns, but he is getting a lot of his air yards, team's air yards, and a big target share. But I would flip him for a couple picks and just to maybe help your chances moving forward if you're already out of it. 10-4. 10-4, bye-bye, Brendan. Okay. 10-4, bye-bye, Brandon. And get it. I was like, wait, you're 10-4. How are you 10-4? I mean, we're only into week 9 here. But yeah, it depends on your context. If you're out of it, you should sell, right? Just don't sit. You should sell some of these pieces and get some picks in general. Mohamed Saad, I have James Robinson and Robert Woods. What's a receiver I should target for a trade? Maybe one of those Seattle guys. Could you get one of those Seattle guys and Lockett or Hill? Let's bring up that board again. I know I didn't really address it, Tino, but let's bring it up here. So I think I have the Seattle boys on there. No, I didn't. I kind of left them off. So Lockett and DK Metcalf on a bye this week. I've been talking about buying them the whole time that Geno Smith has been under center. But if you wanted to flip them and if you need a win this week, like those are guys that you can check in on because they're bye this week. But it does sound like Russell Wilson will return for week 10. But if you need a W right now, you flip them. And if you're Muhammad, if you're looking for a wide receiver to target, just take a look at teams that are in the bottom of the standings. Teams like there's a lot of good wide receivers on bye this week. Seattle, you got Washington and Terry McLaurin. There's some wideouts that you could maybe see if they are available, but that's the best way I think to target wideouts is look at the league mates and see who's at the bottom and who's desperate for wins, and you can take advantage of them that way. But these are guys that I would sell. Adrian Peterson, I don't fully believe. A lot of people are talking about him being a rock solid RB2. I don't know how much gas does he have left in the tank. Jeremy McNichols is going to be involved in this offense. I don't know, really. Adrian Peterson's stock may not be as high as it is right now. People are trying to trade him in dynasty leagues for a second-round pick. I'd rather keep my second-round pick. AP, sell him right now if you can. Boston Scott, too. We called on the show that it would be Boston Scott over Kenneth Gainwell. We'll see if they get into a more competitive games that maybe Kenneth Gainwell gets on the field and catches a few passes, but he has struggled as a pass blocker. Boston Scott has not. He's a more experienced back. Jordan Howard got in there. He got in there and got some red zone carries as well. So it's still a full-on mess in Philadelphia. You can't trust it. Miles Sanders will be back eventually. Now's the time to trade Boston Scott to an owner who's in need. Maybe they're rolling out Antonio Gibson. Maybe they're rolling out J.D. McKissick. Maybe they've been rolling out Alex Collins here who's on a bye. Maybe they're rolling out Fournette who's on a bye. So just, see what you can get. I'd imagine it's not much, but you can maybe package him in something. And then Tyler Boyd, he's still a third option on the Bengals. He had a touchdown last week. The Bengals schedule is extremely tough moving forward. And then hear me out on Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts, to sell on him, everybody, right? Calvin Ridley is gone and we wish him the best. Certainly dealing with some stuff. We really do wish him the best. Don't tweet at Calvin Ridley about your fantasy team. Tweet, we wish you the best. And I encourage these athletes that are doing it. Carey Price stepped up and said he's dealing with mental issues, illness, and he's been away from the team for a while. The fact that these guys are stepping up and doing this, I think is good, because if you're dealing with something as well, maybe it's something for you to say, okay, if these guys are willing to get help and talk about it, with everybody and their followers, maybe you can as well. So if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. Heck, reach out to me at Chris Meaney. You want to have a conversation, we'll have a chat. I'm always here to talk. But hear me out on Kyle Pitts. And Jake agreed with me as well, and he's a sharp dude, and he's a huge Pitts fan. I have Pitts, one share of him, and I have Dallas Goedert in that team too. I'm actually fine rolling Dallas Goedert out. Now, I think Pitts, tight end 2, rest of the way, probably. Maybe Andrews over him. But what we saw last week without Calvin Ridley was people tripling Pitts and certainly doubling them. He's going to get some targets, but it could be tough. The efficiency may not be there. Volume is king. It's absolutely everything. But for me as a Dallas Goedert owner, and I really like him moving forward without Zach Ertz, I think, we've seen 2 strong games back to back where he's had his best games of the season. He's playing majority of the snaps. He's running a route on like 90% of Jalen Hurts' dropbacks, where I'm fine rolling out Goddard and making Pitts available to my league mates, but I also think you can get a couple pieces for him. Jake said he would trade him for Pitt. He would trade Pitts for Goddard and a Cooks, for example, or Goddard and something else. You could maybe get 2 for 1. So it all depends on your situation. If you've been able to pick up a backup tight end or Dallas Goedert was available, you grabbed him when he was on the COVID list. It all depends on your situation for sure. But make Pitts available in your league. You could get a 2 for 1. You could. And I would do that. I would do a 2 for 1, especially if it meant getting back an RB2. It's really tough to get an RB2 these days. It's tough, man. The running back position is really challenging to roll out guys as your RB2 or a flex with confidence. So just make them available and see what you could get there. We'll take a quick break. We got some NHL talk here as well. I'll get to the questions. If you have more questions, we can always bring them back up throughout the show, and I'll circle back as well if you are watching on the YouTube page. But we'll take a quick break. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Keep her locked. Watching Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. So just before we get to some NHL picks, some other guys that I would just field offers for, as in like, hey, these guys are available. Do you want them? Joe Burrow, I mentioned the very tough schedule for the Bengals moving forward. Justin Fields in a redraft league just had his best game. Antonio Gibson, I would just get whatever I could for him. I'm extremely worried about him moving forward. Michael Carter, I like him, but I would make him available coming off an RB1 showing last week. Melvin Gordon, Mike Davis just had a decent game. I mentioned Boston Scott, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins, Randall Cobb, Jacoby Myers. Elijah Moore was like fourth on his team in routes run and snaps played. You look at the box score, he was great. Brennan Ayuk just had a big game. And then I mentioned Kyle Pitts. Those are some guys that I would just field offers for. And the comment there, this is actually a pretty good trade. MPX1606. The trade was Swift for Saquon and Khalil Herbert. That's cool. I like it. I'm into that. I mean, I like Swift. I think he's a buy low. But you're getting Saquon. You're taking some risk here. But you can roll out Khalil Herbert at least until Montgomery comes back. I think he's a couple weeks away. And who knows? When he comes back, it could be a split. Khalil Herbert's gotten a lot of carries. He looks decent. I mean, he didn't have all that inefficient. He wasn't that efficient last week, but he topped 100 yards against the Bucs. He's catching a couple balls. I'm okay with that move, especially if you're up at the top. I mean, hopefully you're in, a playoff spot. If you only have a couple wins, like that's a move that, I don't know, that one may hurt you. We don't know when Saquon is going to come back, but that's just a pretty solid move there. I like that. I'm also into selling Khalil Herbert because Montgomery is going to come back, and like I said, it could be a bit of a committee there. Let's turn our attention here to the NHL. 9 games, as I mentioned. Dangle Bet Selly is a free show, absolutely free. We would love if you could rate, review, subscribe. If you're watching it on the FTN YouTube page or ftnbets.com, smash the like button. Any questions there, you can leave them. But we are giving away another betting package on Thursday. So if you show me you're subscribed to that show, reach out at the Eric Young or at Chris Meaney or meanstreetsftn@gmail.com, and we'll put you in the draw to give away a betting package on Thursday's show. So this is what I'm thinking from a bets standpoint, from straight up picks. And I have to come off Detroit. So by all means, if you want to take the upset, take the shot. I'm not on the Habs. They're just not playing good hockey. I don't want to put my money on them. I usually bet against them. But don't Dylan Larkin here tonight. And I think that's huge. No Dylan Larkin. No Tyler Bertuzzi. He doesn't have the shots, so he's not playing games in Canada. So I got to cross him off the list. But I really like the New York Rangers here tonight. I just really like what I'm seeing from the Rangers overall. They're a strong team. Igor Shesterkin has looked really, really good so far this season. I think he's a great play in DFS as well. He's under 8K. He's looked really good. So I like the Rangers here tonight against the Canucks. You can get them live right now as -128. I did this last night. Put the bets in if you follow FTN Alerts or you're subscribed over FTN Bets or you're in our Discord channel. Say, hey guys, jump on the Rangers right now. You get them at -115. They're probably going to be around -130 before a puck drop, and that seems to be the case. The Calgary Flames as well. Loving the Flames. They're currently at -145, so this hasn't changed too much. Jacob Markstrom, 3 shutouts on the season. The Flames are among the leaders in scoring chances, high danger chances created at 5-on-5. This is a different team than last season. Daryl Sutter took over halfway through the year. They got him playing really good hockey. John Goudreau is playing his best hockey as a Flame as well. He leads the league in primary assists. He's been really, really strong. And this is the goaltending, right? Plus they're stingy. They don't give up a whole lot. I kind of lean to the under in that game as well. at 5.5. I don't have it on the board, but I do like the Flames and the under. I also like the Jets. I just can't trust this Dallas Stars team. They're not scoring any goals. They've yet to score more than 3 goals in a game this season. They've held teams in check. They're not allowing a lot. And Winnipeg here with Connor Hellebuck, I don't think he's going to give up more than 2 goals against the Dallas Stars. So I got to lean with the Jets. It does sound like Mark Scheifele could return. Blake Wheeler returned the other day. Kyle Connor's the hottest player going in the NHL with 7 goals and 14 points. He's got 5 goals at 5-on-5, tied with Pierre-Luc Dubois for the league lead. And that's another guy. Pierre-Luc Dubois has looked phenomenal to start the season, looking like the guy in Columbus before he was shipped from John Tortorella, just straight up benching this guy. But he didn't show any effort at all with Columbus towards the end of, I guess, the end of his tenure in Columbus. He only spent a couple years there, but he looked awesome as a rookie and as a sophomore, and he looks great so far this season. So that's kind of it. I mean, after the Red Wings off the board, let's see, what else do I got here? That's really it. I mean, I got a parlay with Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Toronto. I think it pays like maybe 2-1. I got a long shot parlay with Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Toronto on the puck line. That's like that's 10-1. That's a long shot one. I wouldn't put a full unit on that, maybe 0.25 or half a unit. At some point, Arizona's going to win a hockey game. I don't know. They've hung around with some teams lately. They're just not generating much offense. So I still like the Flyers. It's hard to take them on the money line at -200 or anything like that. But you can get them in a parlay maybe with Minnesota and Toronto. And then I do have most of my parlays will be sprinkled around Calgary and New York. The Rangers tonight. Probably put Minnesota on there. Ottawa in the second half of a back-to-back. The Wild at home. I like Minnesota as well. Got some shot props in here next. So we'll continue to try to provide some winners here. Don't go anywhere. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. All right, 9 games on the ice tonight, so lots of action in the NHL, a lot of action over at FTNBets.com, FTNBets.com/pricing. Use the promo code MeanStreets or NHL, save yourself a little bit of cash, or show me that you're subscribed to Dangle Bet Selly, and you'll get into a draw. We'll give away an NHL, we'll actually give away an all betting sports package. That's what we're doing over at FTNBets.com/pricing. All the picks live for you across every single sport, Discord channel, and access to some tools as well. So let's bring up the shot props. A couple things have changed, like I said, when I gave this to my guy, George, 3 putts for par. So Timo Meier, I'm seeing that he's actually 3.5 in some spots. I think he's plus money, 3.5 over at Caesars. It's a little rich for me. Honestly, I do lean for the over, but it's not my favorite one on the board. I think you can still get Timo Meier at like -160, -167. You just have to put him into a parlay. It's a little high just to play him as a single. Nikolai Ehlers, just continue to play this guy, right? He's inside the top 10 in shot attempts. He's actually second in the NHL in shot attempts behind Alex Ovechkin. So he's shooting the puck a lot, and books are still hanging -149 with him. I put in the bet tracker at -149, the over on Nikolai Ehlers. I think Kyle Connor is always in play, but some books are really catching on. We'll have to adjust, and we will adjust. The same thing happened last year. We were all in on Mikko Rantanen until they adjusted, and they moved him to 3.5, and then we just got off of him, and then we found other guys. But as of now, continue to ride Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor. He is juiced to the over, I think, -169 at 2.5. Some spots I've seen. I just saw somebody talk about Barstool Sportsbook just went live in Iowa, they said. And I'm seeing Kyle Connor 2.5 at -200 and Nikolai Ehlers 2.5 at -200. That's nonsense. We're not going to do that kind of stuff here on the show. You want to put him in a parlay? I'm actually okay with that kind of stuff. You can put 3 guys into a parlay and get plus 360 at that odds. I know it's crazy to think about minus 200, but these guys are shooting the puck so much. Like, that's where I would start my parlays, maybe 2-shot prop parlays or 3-shot prop parlays. I'd get in there with Ehlers and Connor and mix them in with Meyer. Dylan Larkin, unfortunately, he's not going to play. 13 shots in his last 2 games, so I got to cross him off the board. Riley Smith is plus money. Dangle Betselli, somebody had commented and said that he was minus 167 over 1.5 shots, but he's shooting the puck a ton here. I would rather Shea Theodore, so I put Shea Theodore on the board. I would replace him with Dylan Larkin. He's minus 105 for over 2.5 shots. He's hit that consistently lately. He's getting a lot of ice time. Matthew Tkachuk over 2.5 shots. He's been hitting that as well. He's inside the top 10. Blake Coleman, I wanted to come in here, and I just found it. He is live. Books have taken him off. I don't know if it's because we're taking all the money, because Blake Coleman's been plus 140, plus 150. He was off the books, Bet365. He was there 5 straight games, and we hit it, and then they just took him off the board. But I'm seeing him on the board right now, Blake Coleman at over 2.5 shots at plus money, so I'd put him in there as well. Maybe you can just take away Timo Meier. You're certainly taking away Dylan Larkin, and then you get involved with Matthew Tkachuk. I do like Blake Coleman a little bit more than Matthew Tkachuk, but Tkachuk is perfectly fine. He has been hitting, like I said, he's inside the top 10 in shots, and then Riley Smith and Shea Theodore in there as well. John Tavares and William Nyland are inside the same game against Vegas. Both of these guys are certainly in play, and I thought the price would be more steep with Tavares, but you can get him around minus 140 for over 2.5 shots and get Nylander around minus 120 for 2.5 shots as well. I'll throw Kaprizov to put into parlays, Cam Atkinson to put into parlays as well. And a long shot, I do think this is a breakout game for Tyler Toffoli. You can get him at plus 140 for 2.5 shots as well. All right, a quick break, and we'll preview Game 6 of the World Series happening tonight in Houston. Don't go anywhere. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Game 6 of the World Series happening tonight. It could be all over with a Braves victory. My goodness, as a guy who has a 10-1 World Series future on them, I really hope they get it done tonight, because I don't know. Game 7, I just don't know. In Houston, all that experience, and I thought really the inexperience got the best of the Braves in their Game 5, right? They started off with a grand slam, and then, Houston bats, like they just, Yuli Gurriel has been phenomenal all season long, and in the postseason, he's been the Astros' best hitters here in the World Series. He's been great as well. If you see any Prize Picks offers, 1.5 hits plus walks, or you see any total bases 1.5, he would be the guy I'd go to on the other side, Eddie Rosario. But we got the game board here tonight. So for Game 6 of the World Series, we got Max Fried on the bump for the Atlanta Braves, and for the Houston Astros, Luis Garcia. So Atlanta at plus 151, as you see there. The over-under, you can get at 8.5. I think it goes over. Like, this is, I think, the best play on the board here today is 8.5. And I really do feel like my heart is telling me Atlanta, but I don't bet with my heart. I'm telling you guys straight up what I really feel, and I feel like the Astros win tonight. And it goes to Game 7. But I will say this. There's a couple things going well for Atlanta. The bullpen. They didn't have to get into the bullpen in Game 5. There was no high leverage situations because that game was a blowout. The Astros just scored a bunch of runs. And then the day off yesterday, I think, helps the Atlanta bullpen. What I am worried about here is Max Fried. Now, Fried had the best ERA down the stretch. It was sub 2. In 12 starts. He was great, but here in the postseason, I mean, he's been getting rocked. I mean, he got rocked against the Dodgers 2 starts ago, 4 2/3, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 homers. He walked 2 guys, and then against the Astros, he lasted 5 innings. He gave up 6 runs on 7 hits. He walked 1 guy. He's good. He's a really good pitcher. I like him overall. He keeps the ball on the ground, but we've talked about in Game 2 when he gave the Astros as a pick, they are really good against lefties. They hit lefties really, really good. And I'm not totally buying into Luis Garcia. You know, he had a decent start against Atlanta here, but he only went 3 2/3. He walked 4 guys. He's walked 11 guys in 13 innings here in the postseason, and he's given up 11 runs. So I think the over. I think we're going to see some offense here. Get involved with props with Yuli Gurriel or Eddie Rosario, who's been red hot. I think we see the over hit here. Like I said, I do believe that the Astros win this game. My heart tells me Atlanta. I'm hoping for Atlanta here that they win, but I think the best bet on the board is the over. And then I'm going to be on Houston and the over here tonight. Good luck around the diamond on the hard court. Tomorrow we're going to talk some NBA. I know we haven't done a lot of NBA here. We'll get producer Tino on. We'll do some roster trends, and we'll take a look at the NBA schedule and get some NBA picks for you as well. But good luck on the ice. Good luck on the hard court and around the diamond. Myself, Chris Meaney. Leave any questions you have, and I'll circle back as well before puck drop here tonight. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Cheers.